Oh, good evening, everybody. Well, proper Hastings crowd in tonight. People of all interest sets. Good to see that. So yeah, for those who don't know me, I'm Steve Martin. I write and practice under the name S.I. Martin, and I'm really, essentially, an obsessive about subjects such as the one I'm going to share with you today. I love just to exhume individuals, people who have been sort of fallen through the sieve of history and commemorate them, really, find ways in which to hold them in public memory and really hold them up to scrutiny in a really harsh way, probably a brutal way. But I think it just makes these individuals more human, more part of us, and it brings out all of these extraordinary stories which are locked in the landscapes that we move through every day. This is a presentation which has been informed and helped along by a number of people who are among us this evening. I don't see the very eminent David Tibet here. He's unmistakable, those of you who know him. He is absolutely unmistakable. Who's noticeable by his absence, because a number of these documents that I'll be sharing with you are from his collection, his vast collection, and some of his first editions as well. Similarly, I'd just like to acknowledge Christopher Joseph, who is here among us, who has done a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of bringing Rollo Ahmed to the public attention. And it was through his agencies, 7 years ago in 2017 at Treadwell's bookshop that I first came across Rollo Ahmed. And like with all these characters, the first big question is, why don't we talk more about him? How can characters like this just vanish, etc., etc.? Christopher is, I will embarrass him by saying he's the world expert in Jeffology, which will become apparent fairly soon. And finally, of course, I'd like to thank Claudine and Lorna and all of the team of We Out Here and Seaside Memories, who have really transformed a lot of the culture in this town and made my 1.5 years here quite extraordinary. So that's not an exaggeration. So our man here, Abdul Said Ahmed, as he was born in 1899, 1898, depending which record we're reading, who transformed himself into Rollo Ahmed. Who was he? Various reports claim that he's an Egyptian. Some people just describe him as a Negro, others as a West Indian, an Indian, a man of color, a black man. He himself claimed throughout his life that his father was from Egypt and that his mother was a West Indian. You can see, well, it seems apparent, I put money on it, that his lineage is of Afro-Asian Guyanese background. He was born in Guyana. But the Egyptian side, the Egyptian claim, I think is quite interesting. Why does he claim Egyptian heritage? Well, for a couple of reasons. There's one, on one hand, he can remove himself from any sort of suspicion of African heritage. Remember, here is someone who arrives in this country, we believe in the early 1920s, and he is arriving at a time, we can estimate he probably arrived around 1921, 2 years after the race riots, which totally consumed all of the port cities of these islands, including Liverpool, where we believe he disembarked. And he would have been faced with the reality of just not being able to get meaningful long-term work. By claiming some sort of Egyptian lineage, does it improve his chances of employment? We also know that there's a possibility that he claimed an Egyptian background on his father's side because this is suddenly the fad. Everyone was looking at Egypt with new eyes. You had Howard Carter's discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb. So this was a non-white, high-profile culture which was in the public interest. So maybe he was getting something out of that. But remember again that he's arriving in a period when black projectors in particular are, black fabulists are fairly common. And now, for obvious reasons, there's that lack of employment, lack of opportunities. So by recreating oneself as, say, Isaac Brown did in the 1890s, Isaac Brown recreates himself as multiple African princes, but they're always African princes who are in style. And of course, he is at one time a Zulu prince and at another an Ethiopian prince, depending where the imperial flag is being planted or battered. So this is something which is a known tactic of a known way of raising one's profile and possibly inoculating oneself from the virulent racism of the time, given this country's association with titles and honorifics, etc., etc. We can imagine that, like his character, Caleb Buller, who features as the protagonist of his semi-autobiographical book, I Rise, of 1937, we can imagine that he also tried his hand on the stage. He might have gone from town to town selling potions and nostrums like a number of other black men were doing, again using exoticism as a way of enhancing a unique selling point, as we'd say nowadays. But he's definitely someone with his mind on his money and his money on his mind. That was a generationally specific joke for anyone who got it. But he does look like him, doesn't he? So we know that he establishes himself in that activity as basically say an all-round and all-purpose spiritual worker. I was trying to find a euphemism, but he's an all-purpose spiritual worker. He's a spiritual adept. He's familiar with yoga, which apparently he learnt in India. He's familiar with the traditions of African communities and the African origin communities in the Caribbean, Obia, Voodoo, etc. He's familiar with the traditions of indigenous Brazilian communities and seemingly every community worldwide. He's multi-talented. He has many streams of work, as the young people say. Inevitably, it got him in trouble because you have to remember that he's still operating under the Witchcraft Act. Yes, the Witchcraft Act of 1735, which I think has a punishment of a sentence of 1 year for anyone practicing witchcraft or conjuring spirits or communing with the devil. How this is proven, we don't know. But I just think it's amazing. I mean, the Witchcraft Act went on until, 1951. 1951. And actually, it just amuses me, but the 1735 Act was a very progressive and liberal improvement on the 1604 Act, which did allow basically for lynching witches, or certainly hunting them down and publicly murdering them, executing them. Anyway, he's going to fall foul of not just the Act. He could have fallen foul not just of the Act, but of sensibilities of the time, which it's very easy for people like myself who are non-believers to mock, but they were the reality that a lot of people lived in, including this gentleman. Yeah, Mr. Philip Rondell, who was, it says, the owner of a farm in St. John's Parish on Jersey. The year's 1930, and the full readout, alleged black magic. West Indian and Jersey farmer Rollo Ahmed, 31, a native of Demerara, was charged on remand today before the Jersey Police Court with having at various times obtained by means of false pretenses sums of money amounting to nearly £100 in 1930. That was enough. By telling Mr. Philip Rondell of the farm that he was possessed of supernatural powers and that by means of black magic he could remove the spell which had been cast over Rondell's menage. Mr. Asa Koof stated that he introduced Ahmed to the Rondells, believing he had certain magical powers, but he had no idea that Ahmed would have extorted money in the way indicated in the charge. He ended up getting 9 months for that, which is ridiculous. It's absurd. Mr. Rondell was, of course, mocked widely for his gullibility and his stupidity. But these were beliefs which are held by rural people on that island. But Rollo gets a 9-month sentence, and this is 1930. He has the year in which he will that his partner, Theodora Le Breton, will bring his first child, we believe, into the world, Michael. So, is this just a really desperate case of him needing money and he'll go to any lengths just to stock up, his resources? We don't know. But, I mean, I should have said, by way of clarifying what I do, one of my streams of income, as the young people say, is as a writer of fiction as well as non-fiction. And things like this just really move me. I get obsessed by them, imagining his position as a black man in Jersey. Was he the black man in Jersey? But a person who is very aware of his minority status, who's having this relationship with a woman who I'm not sure that he married then or ever did, and a woman who already has a child by a previous marriage, and a white woman, I should say. And yes, he needs money. He's in a terrible, terrible situation. And this wasn't just the one-off. There are other situations in Ahmed's life, a couple of other instances where he served prison sentences, including, I think, a 2-year sentence in the 40s he served as well. So what we do see, which I think is interesting, is that he spent a fair amount of his life in Hampshire and Sussex, plying his trade. But that's not really why we know him, or why he's just re-entered public memory, because he was also a writer. He produced these 2 books. On the left is The Black Art, with an introduction by Dennis Wheatley. Briefly, just to say, the occult writer, Dennis Wheatley, was a very reliable confidant, and I would actually say friend of Rollo Ahmed. They had a bizarre, bizarre correspondence, but you can see there's some sort of affection and tenderness and genuine attention between these 2 gentlemen. We'll have an example of some of that correspondence in a while, but it was Dennis Wheatley who pushed Rollo Ahmed into the attention, under the attention of his publisher, John Long, who was looking for a book on the dark arts, magic, spirituality. And like a good friend and associate, Dennis Wheatley suggested the Egyptian, his Egyptian friend, Rollo Ahmed, who produced this baffling piece of writing. It's quite stunning in the way that it definitely plays to a lot of racial stereotypes. In the way the book is constructed, the headings, the heading under which you'll find Africa, Australasia, and a lot of the non-white world It's just the primitive races. That's it. The rest of the book goes into notions, I would say, of European witchcraft and magic. Sure, I should have prefaced all of this by saying I am totally not disposed towards I'm indisposed towards any notion of spirituality or magic. It makes absolutely no sense to me. But mercifully, we have people in this assembly who'll be able to more respectfully and sensibly address these issues. So just in case I stumble, because I will. I can't describe this stuff at all. But so Rollo Ahmed produces this book, which does play to racist sensibilities. He talks about the fact that, his notion that there are few forms of African worship which don't involve cannibalism, and he talks about things which you can't have any knowledge about, like his whole idea of yoga, which we might talk about in a minute. And some of it, it's claimed, was plagiarized by Montague Summer, another writer on these issues. But it brought him into the regard of the reading public. Suddenly he has a profile on the back of which he can get this extraordinary book published, I Rise, The Life Story of a Negro, which is published in 1937. It must have been extraordinary for the black population of the time, those who did come into a copy of this, to actually start reading it. You remember, we're talking about a time now in the 1930s when you have still that core black population of mariners, seafarers and their families living in the port cities, as well as large numbers of independent traders and African princes and executive and business people living in London, as well as a vast number of just people who are just extremely poor and living hand to mouth. However, they are organized. There are organizations like the League of Colored Peoples, Dr. Harold Moody's Association for the Welfare of Black People in London. There are, there are the works of intellectuals like Edward Smalls and Theophilus Scholes, which are available to read. And there's a general sort of high-mindedness amongst this poor but very, very interesting community. So I just imagine how it must have been to pick up or acquire a copy of I Rise, The Life Story of a Negro, and read what's in the last third of the book. An extraordinary indictment of racism in Britain of that period. Of his hero is his protagonist is, as I said, Caleb Buller, who arrives in Liverpool and he finds all sorts of doors closed to him, not just in terms of employment, but in terms of where he can live and just how he can feel about himself. And he's multiply abused. I've not read anything like it at all. I think if there's one thing, if Rollo Ahmed needs redemption, it's in the last third of this book, because it's quite a moving piece of writing. And again, it helped to establish him as his literary presence. How's this going to work? Oh, yes. So when I said he was close to the Wheatleys, he was really close to the Wheatleys because they also made use of his services, and we're going to see a bit more of his services soon, by advising them on yoga. And this is the sort of yoga I could advise on. So when I say that, and I'm not joking. You can see here in the red, the second paragraph, it's an exercise. In fact, you can join in. You can do it with me. This is his exercise for the Wheatleys. And you can imagine them, first thing in the morning before they've eaten, actually doing this, as you can do, as you stand or sit erect, breathing through the nostrils, inhale steadily, brackets, personal instruction will be given. Part 2, retain the breath a few seconds. Part 3, exhale quite slowly, holding the chest in a firm position. Excuse me, I'm on the phone. And drawing the abdomen in a little. And, my God, excuse me. And yeah, lifting it upwards slowly as the air leaves the lungs. When the air is entirely exhaled, relax the chest and abdomen a little. That's the exercise. That's the exercise. But the thing is, he got away with it. He did this, and I just say, all credit to him to manage these absurdities. But he was living in an absurdly racist time. But he didn't do too badly, though. Yes, this is one of his homes. Because, of the nature of his activities, he's obliged to move from place to place. But for a while, he lived here at the Old Stein in Brighton, flat number 4. And there's a lot of correspondence between himself and Dennis Wheatley, which I think is absolutely hilarious, including a lot of begging letters. They're very polite, very beautifully written, of course, with wonderful cursive, but they're still begging letters, such as this one, which is Dear Wheatley from 1936. Dear Wheatley, it was indeed kind of you to give the Reverend Nash a reference for me. He's always needing references. As a black man, he always needs someone to front for him. With anything professional or anything that his life depends on. We're moving on Saturday to 5 Reynolds Road, Hove, which was a beautiful, stereotypically suburban property in Hove. It will be a pleasant change to have a home again, because now he's got 2 other children with Theodora, his partner, inverted commas, wife. It will be a pleasant change to have a home again. This is a really nice house with a charming garden, etc. I hope you enjoyed your holiday in Budapest. I rang you up the other evening to have a small chat, but found you out. You'll see that I Rise. You'll see that I Rise is listed for this season's books. I'm working overtime to get it completed in good time, and when it's on the market, I should be very obliged for your help in securing more publicity than was allotted to the black arts. Excuse me. I think I've just got onto the wrong letter. Yes. The publishers will be allowing me a sum of £50 down on publication with a possible deduction of £10 in the event of work. I don't know if you can possibly loan me £39, 10 shillings to enable me to provide these essentials. The money could be refunded straight from the publishers should this be at the appointed time. He goes on to describe the size and scope of the work. But yeah, that was the nature of their correspondence, with Wheatley doing a lot of the heavy lifting, and Rollo needing money all the time. Because while in Brighton, he had opened premises on which he could conduct his business. He described himself as an advisory agent, because, he can't say, witch for hire. It's not 1951 yet. So he's an advisory agent, and he works out of the Advice Bureau and Yoga Studio, room 2, 3rd floor, 49 Ship Street, Brighton. And while he's in Brighton, he's always brassic. But again, talking to Dennis Wheatley, he describes how he is going up to the Isle of Man this weekend, and we'll send you my address when we get there. I'm going on a rather curious and possibly ludicrous mission, e.g., to investigate a talking mongoose. Yes, this phenomenon, about which I'm more than doubtful, has been stirring the psychic dovecots for the past 4 years. I've now been asked up to investigate and endeavour to get at the bottom of the mystery. I'm taking the opportunity to arrange lectures and classes and so on. So he's using grifts upon grift. He uses the quest for the truth of Jeff the Talking Mongoose to get newspaper deals, talking arrangements, sell books, etc. The investigation itself does not hold out any monetary benefit on the face of it, but it may be useful in various ways, as it was for him. I'm afraid I shan't have time to see you when I pass through London, but hopefully to do so on my return. So that's an interesting relationship. The two of them get on fairly well, given their divergent statuses, but particularly when he is in Brighton, he's very much dependent on Wheatley, and he does become familiarize himself with local spiritually minded / witchcraft, societies in Brighton at the time. He builds a set of people around him. Very busy man, though. Here are two leaflets for his activities, again through the agency of David Tibet. And you can see he's going to be at the Royal Pavilion, Brighton, on March the 20th afternoon, 3:15 p.m. prompt. The Chair Fellowship of Yoga Sciences announces that Rollo Ahmed will give a lecture on how to get what you want. A practical study of natural laws accompanied by a demonstration illustrating the methods of Oriental hypnotism contrasted with Western hypnotism. So, this is some very rational entertainment. We've got Oriental hypnotism and Western hypnotism contrasted and compared. Scientific training reveals the fundamental errors in your life and helps to lead to success. Following the lecture and demonstration, a course of 6 lessons will be given on how to be magnetic and attract your desires, how to master circumstances. Statement. Optimism versus pessimism. Obtaining the correct outlook on life. The secret of health by means of Oriental suggestions. How to realize your personality in colors. The study of laws of vibration. But he's doing it. He's on his grind. He's working away at it. And here he is, I believe this is the same year, 36, in Shoreham Town Hall, and this is in November. Author and lecturer will speak on the magic of the mind. But this is the telling phrase here. Extraordinary demonstrations and a brilliant lecture by the only coloured author in Europe. So even if he wasn't promoting himself like that, he allowed that to pass. That just went. But also note, Rollo Ahmed will be pleased to autograph your copies of his latest book, The Black Art and I Rise. So it's a freebie. So he's got to, find a way to do what he has to do. And here he is again in Eastbourne in 37, and. He's a yogi, psychologist now, mystic lecturer, and an author, of course. The controversial sensation of the season, I Rise, demonstration of amazing powers, definite proof of thought transference, startling hypnotic experiments, talking mongoose phenomenon explained after personal investigation. So, he's still with Jeff. He's still got the mongoose to, he's channeling the mongoose, you could say. A lecture you must not miss, a lecture you'll never forget, etc., etc. Busy man. So I do respect him for his just the grift and grind. So he comes to this fair town in 1951, and I wonder if he was still under possibly the threat of the Witchcraft Act, which was lifted that year, or that part of the Witchcraft Act lifted in 51, that he can come to this fair town and speak about world peace, but Christian world peace in our international policy based on the teachings and commandments of Christ. Have Christ's teachings any real power and application in world affairs? Love, joy, and peace do exist in the midst of world problems, and we extend a friendly welcome to all men and women of goodwill to hear Mr. Abdul Saeed Ahmed, using his actual name or his official name, to speak on the Christ spirit in world affairs. Now, this is a new turn. I don't know why. And I'm not exactly sure if he's actually living here yet or if he's starting to scout out this part of East Sussex, because we certainly know he's there, 54, 55. But where it's going to be held at the Lower Hall, White Rock Pavilion. Has anyone been in that inferno? Yes, it's just not. But it's in October, so must have taken off some of the sweltering heat in that place. Yeah, so that's what he's doing when we find him, according to the, in Hastings, according to the Hastings and St. Leonard's Observer. But, yes, this is where we know that he lived. Harpsichord House. Now, as, no pun intended, as fresh blood to Hastings, you know, I remember coming here and just looking about and wandering, you know, towards the West Hill from the Old Town and, you know, going past St. Clement's and proceeding, you know, using the railing up to Coburg Place and turning the corner into this and then realizing that this is where he lived. Not only that this is where he lived, but on passing underneath here, you know, just above me is where he supposedly had some of his ceremonies and his rituals and his goings on. And it's just a shame that not much is made of this because, you know, there is his supposed association with Aleister Crowley, which I hope someone else in this room can flesh out for me because I think it's quite thin. We know that he was associated with Crowley in the 30s. He helped him to get lodging, and there was some thin correspondence when he was in Brighton about goings-on, Crowley and goings-on in London. And I don't think the dates match up, but hopefully we can flesh some of that out later. But there's so much we don't know about what happened here. And this particular metal flap, there is a rumor that covers up access to St. George's Caves, and that Rollo and his robed and masked associates would just vanish into somewhere on this wall, you know, to do what they do. I don't know. It's a great story, but I don't know. But yeah, there's no plaque, no memorial. There's nothing just to establish the fact that he was there. And it's a lovely walk as well. A lovely walk. But what did people think he was doing there? As this extract from the Sunday, the Sunday Pictorial, which went on to become the Sunday Mirror, as it tells us or suggests, masked. They meet by candlelight. And here's our man just spooking it up on above this line. Not in darkest Africa, but here in England, a hooded magician invokes the devil. I mean, really going for it. What this was about, I don't know. but happy Halloween, everybody. And this was, well, it's so, I mean, obviously, you had a situation where this event was being secretly recorded. I don't think so. It's pretty obvious that, you know, they must have been reporters asking questions. But the full title is Black Magic, and it tells of how 13 people went to a house on the south coast last week to take part in a black magic ceremony. They went at the invitation of dark-skinned Rollo Ahmed. They thought that they were unobserved, but the pictorial was there, unseen, to watch. Who is the creep in this one? Was there, unseen, to watch them. While Bill Turner took these dramatic pictures by infrared and candlelight through a peephole, etc. I mean, they write themselves. It just goes on, as you can see. But they actually do get some sort of interview with Mr. Ahmed. Rollo Ahmed, who will perform the ceremony, is with me now. You know, lovely use of the tense. Ahmed says, I am doing this because I want to prove that people in Britain are interested in black magic. The interview says, tonight, of course, Mr. Ahmed, nothing of a harmful nature will be taking place. Ahmed, no, the people will gather downstairs in the hall where they all take the oath of absolute allegiance. No matter what happens, they will have to obey me. It just goes on and on and on. I'll send this to those of you who are really interested, both in the language and the carry-on nature of this nonsense. But yeah, he describes how the rooms are draped with black paper, fantastic murals of large green serpents, mystic symbols, figures of the devils lit by candles and red light, and they start to play some jazz. This is a recording of an old Negro jazz number said to be a replica of a Negro funeral. I think it must be like the Old Rugged Cross or something. Just, you know, can be sort of creepy. And yeah, so Hawkins, the interview goes on, crouched outside the door, I have just watched the black magician kneel before a candle and pray to the devil. And it goes on and on and on until he says, I saw a fair-haired girl taken from her position into the center. The magician put a rose on the floor, then moved his hands over the blonde, starting at the top of her scalp and working his hands down her back. Most of the ceremony took place in... It's just fascinating. If you're interested in that chunk of life, I can send you the link, or maybe just post you this. But it does end basically saying that, yeah, the final comment by our hero reporter, it is disturbing to get confirmation that there are adults in Britain who still wish to flirt with black magic. Intelligent adults will tell all black magicians to go to the devil. And that's, yeah, from the Sunday Pictorial. This was the precursor to the Sunday Mirror. Something came in 63 or 64. But yeah, in the days when we had Sunday papers of a certain style. Okay. So this, I think, is going to be, yeah, the last slide. I should just want to leave some time for Q&A as well. Now, this photograph is, I find it completely mysterious because we can see Rollo on the left, obviously, with someone who I believe would have been his partner, Theodora. And I'm imagining that he is in his 50s by now, as is Theodora. They're both born 1899. Some say Rollo was born 1898. But they're not young people. The question, of course, is, whose children are these? Because we know that Michael, remember Michael, who was being born in Jersey the year his dad gets a 9-month sentence. We know that Michael had a bit of an up and down semi-criminal career, and he marries in 1977. Yeah, he's 47 when he marries, and obviously his father wouldn't have seen his children because his father had been dead in 1950. He died in 1958. So whose children are they? And there's also the issue of whether they were Theodora and Rollo, whether they were one flesh in the body of Christ. They certainly masqueraded as a married couple, in a lot of official documents, the censuses occasionally. There's one census from 1939 in Margate. They're living in Broomwood Road, Margate, which initially lists them as, I believe, Mr. and Mrs. Ahmed, but you can see that an official has struck out the name Ahmed by Theodora's name and added the name Le Breton, which was the name under which she was originally married. So the fact that they managed to keep this going as well is extraordinary. The other thing is, and I don't know why, he is described in a couple of instances as being the father of 5. So there are 2 missing children, if that is true. But yeah, I just thought I'd end on that mystery. And yeah, just thank you for your time.